Good afternoon to you. It's 5:07 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today. 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. President Trump, as expected today, just moments ago, issued another executive order, this one banning schools from pushing racism and body negativity. President Trump stripping funding from any K through 12 institution that does that. The title here, Ending Radical Indoctrination in K through 12 Schooling. Writing, parents trust America's schools to provide their children with a rigorous education and to instill a patriotic admiration for our incredible nation and the values for which we stand. In recent years, however, parents have witnessed schools indoctrinate their children in radical anti-American ideologies while deliberately blocking parental oversight. Such an environment operates as an echo chamber in which students are forced to accept these ideologies without question or critical examination. In many cases, innocent children are compelled to adopt identities as either victims or oppressors solely based on their skin color and other immutable characteristics. In other instances, young men and women are made to question whether they were born in the wrong body and whether to view their parents and their reality as enemies to be blamed. These practices are not only erode critical thinking, but also sow division, confusion, and distrust, which undermine the very foundations of personal identity and family unity. The president announcing today that he is stripping federal funding for any school that pushes this deeply bigoted, divisive, and imaginary garbage. It's just an amazing thing. Here to discuss this breaking news with us now, Rhyen Staley with Parents Defending Education. Rhyen, good to have you with us.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me, sir.
This is you're joining us at a good moment. We intended to talk about this expected executive order. The president apparently just signing it moments ago. What does this mean for schooling in America?
It's going to mean it's going to take a challenge here to rid this stuff out of the schools. But it's a great step in the right direction. Returning the focus back to definitely a colorblind mentality, and that to treat them as individuals, because what the CRT type of stuff has been doing in the classroom is teaching kids to judge each other based on their skin color, immutable characteristics, and stereotype people. I mean, really, it's all the opposite stuff that you and I grew up being taught in schools.
Right. Yes, no, it's pushing racial bigotry. So on one hand, you've got that, and then the other piece is this radical gender ideology stuff. And you heard inside of the executive order, the president is forbidding schools from teaching kids that they were born in the wrong body, which unfortunately has taken off in our country.
Yeah, I'll give you one example. Chicago Public Schools sex education program, the entire curriculum, if you look at it from pre-K through to sixth grade, which is what we have evidence of, it really is a methodical movement from teaching the kids pronouns at an early age and the body parts where they've renamed them, all the way to fifth grade where they're starting to teach them about puberty blockers and things like that, and that they're born in the wrong body. And so, this stuff needs to get out of school. It's really destroying the kids mentally, and it has no place in our schools. This stuff that's based on what they call queer theory is just destructive in its nature, and I believe it's intended that way.
Yeah, it sure is. I think you're exactly right. And in terms of the other executive orders the president has signed on this issue, just yesterday he signed an EO headlined "Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation." This is obviously on the same topic, but forbidding the use of federal resources to do these grotesque mutilations on children. It's what the shocking thing, of course, Rhyen, is that we even have to get to this point where the president of the United States has to declare reality to exist.
Well, with all this stuff, and it's really interesting how none of this stuff a few years ago, according to people on the left, was happening. None of this. CRT was not happening in schools. In fact, Representative Jasmine Crockett just said it like a year ago that stuff was not in schools. And yet here we are, the president has signed executive orders to ban it, and they're freaking out about it, and they're getting really upset. So I find that interesting. But what I will share with you and your audience is this stuff is actually in school too. The gender, the gender affirming care stuff, the kids getting access to puberty blockers. It's very quiet, very under the table. It's there. As far as I've read the executive order on the chemical mutilation part, it only pertains at the moment to federal funding. But I will also tell you that there is billing going on to things like Medicare and Medicaid over this. So at least it's a start. It's not perfect, and nothing ever will be per se. But I think that it's a necessary step in the right direction, and then we need to just keep pushing for these things to end.
Yes. Well, it's a start insofar as it relieves Americans of the burden of endorsing this garbage without their consent. That's what was happening. We're funding this with our tax dollars, and it's a horrifying situation to realize that the money that's being pulled out of your paycheck is being used to abuse children. President Trump at least getting started an effort to correct all of this.
Absolutely. I think we need to continue to drive home the part, and the evidence is showing, by the way, and you and I know this, and your audience probably knows this too, is the evidence is starting to show things that are common sense again, that doing things to young children's bodies is destructive, whether it's physical in this particular case or mental with the CRT and queer theory part of it, that we've just been unleashing real havoc on children in the last couple of years. And now, and credit to all those that have been working the last couple of years to expose this, that we've finally gotten to this point where, even people on the left, liberal friends of ours are agreeing that this is bad stuff. So I think it's finding common ground.
Yes.
Vince, we did polling recently that showed that upwards of 70 to 80% of parents across political spectrum do not support any of this stuff.
Meanwhile, as all of this Marxist garbage has been pushed in the schools at the expense of our children, actual educating is apparently on the slide, because we've got new information today from the so-called Nations Report Card that comes out of the National Center for Education Statistics, a U.S. government body, which found that our nation's eighth graders are currently at their lowest literacy ever recorded. Lowest literacy rates ever recorded. 33% of eighth graders nationwide are functionally illiterate. What am I to make of this finding, Rhyen?
Well, number one is we spent over $190 billion plus on COVID recovery, and obviously negative movement. So there's that part. I think one of the things that I'd say is we maybe zoom out a little bit, and the numbers are abysmal. We've definitely got an issue with education in terms of educating. But the biggest thing to zoom out on is the fact that the gap is widening actually between our lowest performers and our highest performers. And that's also a cause for concern, because we were sold with this equity stuff and CRT, et cetera, that we had to implement that to close the gap between these groups. And unfortunately, in the last four years, it's widened actually. And so that's something to kind of grab a hold of and look at this. And, our worst performers got worse. They got worse. And that's a real pause, especially our neediest students, Vince. The students who special ed have learning disabilities, they got worse. And I think we really have to ask some tough questions. Why?
Yeah, and that doesn't bode well for the rest of your life. I mean, you ask any kind of researcher on this who understands the value of literacy, if you are incapable of reading, that means even by third grade, if you can't read, you are destined to a very difficult life ahead of you. We are setting students up for failure based on this.
Yeah, and I'll give you an anecdote is when I was working with junior hires as a teacher, English teacher, I had a sixth grader who had no phonics skills. She couldn't read, but God bless her, she really wanted to read. and she was not functional at even grade level. And so your heart goes out to these kids, but you're absolutely correct. By third grade, research is showing that that's really the critical stage where these kids need to be at level, which is why these NAEP scores, they evaluate third graders. Fourth graders, but it's after third grade, right? So the key here is that we have to let me back up a step. All that money that we've been spending the last couple of years, we could have done a greater impact for these younger kids by funneling that into reading and math services, right? Tutoring, extra teachers, et cetera. But instead, that money was spent how?
Yes.
And I think that's another piece that we need to investigate. And we at Parents Defending Ed are investigating those type of things. But this is troubling. But at the same time, I think we need to start looking at solutions and move forward.
It's also a really unfortunate piece of emphasis on how vile the COVID lockdowns were. These were not good for kids. It was really bad, and it set a lot of people back very far. And the consequences here are going to be lifelong, Ryan.
Yeah, my wife is also a teacher, and the school district that she was in, they were in lockdown for well over a year. Even the following school year of 2021, and this was a low socioeconomic urban school district. So some of our neediest kids, a district that right now has a 10% proficiency rate, and those kids were locked down for over a year. And so that it was really something. I mean, I don't want to just blame that. Of course, it's a big culprit, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen from the 90s that these scores, since they've been collecting these scores, that this has been an ongoing issue. And so I think it's great that we're having this conversation for unfortunate reasons.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's exactly right. Well, Rhyen Staley, I have to thank you for joining us today and your great organization, Parents Defending Education. Really nice to talk to you. Thank you for your help today.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it.
Rhyen Staley, researcher over at Parents Defending Education. As President Trump banishes all of these Marxist programs from being taught in the schools, hey, no more federal funding for you if that continues. How much did Fairfax County take in last year? I looked at the number last week. Was it $50 million from the feds? Yeah, are they gonna change all of their Marxism inside of the school system? All these, all these DMV area school districts. You gonna knock that crap off? Federal funding may disappear. You willing to let that happen? Hopefully he can fix some of these places. Threaten their money. Maybe he's got to do it more. Maybe he should show up at a school board meeting. Wouldn't that be great if President Trump showed up at a school board meeting? That would be epic. If anybody at the White House is listening, would you please just jot that down on the corner of some piece of paper right now? Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that. Have Trump show up at a school board. It would be the best. That would be the absolute best. Loudoun, Fairfax. Well, oh my gosh, I can't even get over how great that would be. They'll try to stop the cameras. They hate when people talk or when you can see it or when you see the school board members being embarrassed. And I would just love to see the panic on their face. Please go to a school board meeting. That'd be the best. Let's see here. I've got a bunch of calls coming in. Nora calling in from Falls Church now on line 1. Hello, Nora. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello.
Hey there.
I just had a thought about the dismal performance academically across the country.
Yeah.
Worse than ever. I think one factor has to be the illegal immigrants coming in. We really have no idea how many came in. I mean, they're estimates, but, especially Fairfax, I can see it's jammed with illegal immigrants, and I'm sure anywhere. And even the legal ones are a challenge with the English as a second language, right?
Yes. That's a smart point. Yeah, I'm not even sure how far-reaching it would be, but it would seem like it'd be worse than it was a couple years ago. That makes perfect sense.
It sure would be.
Yeah.
It sure would be. And they siphoned a lot of money off of the special ed programs, by the way, the illegal immigrants, or the English as a second language.
Yes.
They just
and if we're measuring,
they were the priority.
And if we're measuring English literacy, the ability to read in English, and you have people who don't functionally speak English to begin with, well, then that would have the effect of saying, yeah, literacy rates are not that good in the United States. That could have a big impact on the numbers too. Yeah, thank you, Nora. That's a smart point. That's a smart piece of this that we should be thinking about as one of the contributing factors. Line 6, Chad Rockville on the air. Hello, Chad. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi.
Hey.
Great show, man.
Thank you.
The reason I called was I started 2 private schools 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I have an understanding of what it takes and what goes on. And I think that the best way to spend the federal money in turning it out to the states is to make sure that it's earmarked for school choice.
Well, I'm so glad you said that because I have some breaking news for you. President Trump has just issued an executive order prioritizing federal funding for school choice programs. I'll share more on that in just a moment when we get back on the other side of the news. And then maybe we'll get into some more of this audio as RFK mixes it up with very corrupt and paid-for United States senators. It's all ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hey, good afternoon. 535 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Before we jump back into other serious news, this just made me laugh today. The left is angry that Karoline Leavitt is an attractive woman. So Joy Behar, who exists within a party of ugly people both on the inside and out, had this to say.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Alyssa Farah, who, by the way, used to work for Trump, defending Karoline Leavitt ever so slightly on The View today. Joy Behar. It's because she's a 10. That's the only reason. Well, it helps. Joy's ridiculous. Okay, breaking news. Trump issues executive order prioritizing federal funding for school choice programs. Katie Watson writing today over at CBS. President Trump on Wednesday issued an executive order that prioritizes and frees up federal funding for school choice programs, directing the Secretaries of Education and Labor to review their respective discretionary grant programs and each submit a plan within 90 days on how to expand school choice. That would be nationwide. The executive order also directs the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, to submit a plan to Mr. Trump for how military families can use Defense Department funds to send their kids to the school of their choosing. Let me pause on that for a moment. The Defense Department has a number of schools inside of the Defense Department, like a number of schools for kids. They call it DODEA, or at least they used to. The Department of Defense Education something. But they have a number of elementary schools, middle schools, high schools that all fall under the United States Department of Defense. And as you might imagine, those schools are actually built on military bases. So the kids of members of the military can attend those schools. I'm a graduate of Camp Lejeune High School. Lejeune High School, that's where I went. And it was great. It was really cool. So the president's looking and going, well, wait a second. We've got some federally funded schools. What could we do with the money for that? And it appears that one of his ideas is give people choice. So that's kind of cool. So school choice at the federal level. More broadly, CBS continues, it directs the Department of Education to prioritize school choice programs through its discretionary grant programs and orders the Department of Health and Human Services to issue guidance on how states receiving block grants for families and children can use those funds to support private and faith-based institutions. So anyway, there's some great news on the school choice front as President Trump signs an executive order that declares that, we need to start spending some more money on that. We need to try and accelerate that all across the country, increase competition, increase quality, and increase outcomes for all of these students. You heard the Defense Department reference there, Pete Hegseth. I've got some good news for you, some wild news for you. You see that they're yanking down Mark Millie's portrait at the Pentagon. General Millie, thoroughly modern Millie, is having his paintings taken down. The left loves this, by the way, tearing down paintings and statues. That's their whole thing. So why would they be opposed to this? Fox report here in the last 24 hours, Pentagon pulling General Milley's security detail and clearance immediately, may face demotion in retirement. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will announce he is immediately pulling retired General Mark Milley's personal security detail and his security clearance, according to multiple senior administration officials. The secretary is also directing the new acting inspector general to conduct a review board to determine if enough evidence exists for General Milley to be stripped of a star in retirement based on his actions to, quote, undermine the chain of command during President Donald Trump's first term, officials say. The Pentagon will also be removing a second portrait of General Milley inside of the Pentagon. This one is from the Army's Marshall Corridor on the third floor, honoring his service as Chief of Staff of the Army. Fox is told the removal of this second portrait will take place as soon as tonight. That was last night that they reported this. This means there will be no more portraits of General Milley inside of the Pentagon. The first portrait of General Milley from his time as the U.S. military's top officer was removed from the Pentagon last week on Inauguration Day, less than 2 hours after President Trump was sworn into office. Yeah, I think that one included, whoever painted it, included a little binder on the desk that was right next to Milley, and it said Ukraine on it. So they even built in a little Ukraine thing into the portrait. Anyway, those are all gone now. Those are gone now. And Pete Hegseth was just on the Fox News channel, actually, a few minutes ago, or within the last hour, talking to Will Cain, and he was asked about what's going on with General Milley. Here's what he had to say.
I want to ask you about General Mark Milley. His photo, his portrait was taken down at the Pentagon. He has, I think there's currently a commission being put together to explore whether or not he should be demoted. His security clearances have been taken away. Tell me the thought process, both there at the Pentagon, at the White House, with Mark Milley.
Accountability is back, Will. It's the understanding that if you actively undermined the chain of command, as General Milley did under the previous Trump administration.
By telling China, don't you worry, if we launch a strike on you, I'm telling you first before it gets there.
We're going to review those actions administratively inside the Defense Department. Mark Milley got a pardon. That's something President Biden was in his purview to do. Just like in our purview at the Defense Department, we have the opportunity to review things he may have done inside the chain of command while President Trump was president that undermined those authorities. So security clearance in the interim is revoked. There will be a review of the rank he will retain upon retirement, and he'll have that process. But this is a demonstration that inside President Trump's Defense Department, we're going to hold not just junior levels or the highest levels possible accountable for actions, and that's what the signal this is meant to send.
All right, so there's Pete Hegseth, now Secretary of Defense, saying, yeah, we're looking at Mark Milley's retirement. We may have to take a star. We took his security detail. Why does he have a security detail? A taxpayer-funded security detail? For thoroughly modern Mark Milley? For what? That's gone. His security clearance, gone. His goofy paintings, gone. You know, the left tears down statues of Teddy Roosevelt, you know? They go after Frederick Douglass statues. It's like so crazy, actually, what the left does. We removed a crappy painting of Mark Milley. And there's Hegseth today explaining all of it. We've also got the audio today out of that hearing with RFK, who was sitting before the Senate. Now, this was supposed to be one of these controversial hearings. Remember, we have a couple of those this week. RFK before the Senate. Tomorrow, we get Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel before the Senate. You know, it's funny, the Senate Democrats are already kind of getting ready for Kash Patel. They posted an image of Kash Patel holding a watermelon with Adam Schiff's face on it. I swear to you, the Senate Democrats posted this image. This is not some Republican. Kash didn't post this. I didn't post this to my X account. No, the Senate Judiciary Democrats today posted to their X account an image of Kash Patel smiling, holding a watermelon with Adam Schiff's face on it. And of course, that you know what that's from, Watermelon Head. That's Donald Trump's, one of President Trump's references to nicknames for Adam Schiff. That also Pencil Neck is also acceptable. And Kash Patel looks like he's having a great time, and he's standing next to what appears to be a trebuchet, an actual like wooden trebuchet. kind of like a catapult. You stick the watermelon in the end of a rope, and then it throws it at a great distance towards, it looks like some sort of children's castle in the background. I don't know where he was, but he looks like he was having a great time. It wasn't recently either. It was warm. He's wearing a T-shirt. Anyway, they post a photo of this, and they write, Kash Patel, Donald Trump's pick for FBI director, shared a video launching a United States senator out of a catapult and posed with it, an unapologetic extremist. Now, we may have to do a couple of fact checks on this post. I don't believe Kash actually launched a United States senator out of a catapult. One, looks like a trebuchet, not a catapult. Two, he wasn't a United States senator at the time that this photo was taken. It was taken clearly, probably in the summer, at least of last year, maybe earlier. Three, it's not actually Adam Schiff. It's a watermelon. Oh, I don't know if I could ask for better opponents. They are ridiculous human beings and so funny. Anyway, all the more reason Kash Patel should become FBI director. He's got a sense of humor. He's cheerful, and he thinks little of Adam Schiff. So, yeah, those are all excellent qualifications to become FBI director. Okay, but we will get to that. Don't worry. I'm going to have plenty of Kash Patel audio once it's produced tomorrow. RFK emphasizing today that America's in a health crisis, and he should run HHS to tackle this.
Americans' overall health is in grievous condition. Over 70% of adults and a third of children are overweight or obese. Diabetes is 10 times more prevalent than it was during the 1960s. Cancer among young people is rising by 1 or 2% a year. Autoimmune diseases, neurodevelopmental disorders, Alzheimer's, asthma, ADHD, depression, addiction, and a host of other physical and mental health conditions are all on the rise, some of them exponentially. The United States has worse health than any other developed nation, yet we spend more on health care, at least double, and in some cases triple, as other countries.
And that summary, an excellent summary and an unfortunate one, just in his opening statement, which, of course, the United States Senate then promptly ignored for the rest of the hearing. They pretended like these problems didn't exist, for the most part. There were some Republicans who acknowledged them, but, these Democrats were attacking him. You're a conspiracy theorist, and, what's wrong with the pharma companies? Why are you attacking the pharma companies? Liz Warren, at one point, tried to get him to promise that he wouldn't ever sue a pharmaceutical company again. What? She takes tons of money from the pharma companies. Before I get to more of this audio from those guys, RFK tried to preempt all of the conspiracy theory accusations by addressing this idea that he's somehow anti-vaccine. He talked about it in his opening statement.
Before I conclude, I want to make sure the committee is clear about a few things. News reports have claimed that I'm anti-vaccine or anti-industry. I am neither. I am pro-safety.
Some Muppet in the background starts screaming, "You are! You are!" And then the cops have to come and take her out of the room.
We'll have order. Please proceed, Mr. Kennedy.
I am pro-safety. I worked for years to raise awareness about the mercury and toxic chemicals in fish, and nobody called me anti-fish. And I believe that that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine, and the last line is, I am not anti-vaccine.
That's a pretty good throwback. The first and last lines of his 2014 book were, I am not anti-vaccine, and yet, the left today, no, you're anti-vaccine. You're against, what do you have against vaccines? The religious adherence they have to this idea that everything you inject into your body can't have any risks whatsoever. Here's Ron Wyden, an awful human being.
The receipts show that Mr. Kennedy has embraced conspiracy theories. Quacks, charlatans, especially when it comes to the safety and efficacy of vaccines.
I didn't realize how heavy his list was until now, just listening to that. Anyway.
He has made it his life's work to sow doubt and discourage parents from getting their kids life-saving vaccines. It has been lucrative for him and put him on the verge of immense power.
All these guys bought and paid for by the very industry that they're so valiantly defending.
This is the profile of someone who chases money and influence wherever they lead, even if that may mean the tragic deaths of children and other vulnerable people.
You know, at one point, he said, look, I don't even need to do this. RFK did. He's like, there is nothing in this for me. I'm not doing this for me.
When I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, depression, all of these things that are related to toxins in the environment? Why can't we just agree with each other to put differences about so many issues, intractable issues aside, and say, we're going to end this? I don't think anybody is going to be able to do this like I have because of my peculiar experience, because I've litigated against these agencies. When you litigate against them, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. I've written 6 books about these agencies. I know a lot about them and I know how to fix it. And there's nobody who will fix it the way that I do because I'm not scared of vested interests. I don't care. I'm not here because I want a position or a job. I have a very good life and a happy family. This is something I don't need. I want to do this because we're going to fix it.
That's exactly the kind of guy you want in that role. Yeah, RFK today. I still can't get over the fact that Bernie Sanders confronted RFK with pictures of baby onesies today.
They are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unfaxed, Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is No Vax, No Problem.
He's so crazy. I'm wearing one right now. I love onesies.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
Are you supportive of the onesies? RFK's like, what are you even talking about? Which is what we usually say when Bernie Sanders speaks. Coming up, the great one, Mark Levin, on this fine station. Tomorrow, I'll be back with all of the new crazy Senate hearings, including with Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. Can't wait to chat with you then.